Hello and welcome to another episode of the Unnamed Sports Podcast. We're back after a long hiatus. I don't know, I had to drag myself and Rob out of the woods to come back and talk about some sports. So we're just going to get right into it. We want to talk about Wild Card Weekend. And then we're going to go and talk about the next round, everything coming up this weekend.
Divisional playoffs.
Yeah. So I guess we can start off with, the Cleveland-Houston game.
Oh, yes. C.J. Stroud, who I really hadn't watched very much all year, was pretty impressive, boy.
So he's been impressive the whole year.
Yes.
Like better than any rookie I think we've ever seen.
Yes.
But I didn't think that they were going to come out and just destroy the Browns. The Browns, like their defense the whole year was like what we all heard about.
And it was the second coming of Joe Flacco. I thought it was going to be.
It was a great story.
It was.
Until he threw a bunch of interceptions.
It's like two pick sixes,
pick
right?
sixes.
I know.
It was doomed. It's funny because you have two teams, and the Browns were like a team like in the beginning of the season, like they had potential, but
Yeah.
you know, they're the Browns.
And when Nick Chubb went down,
They
have since fired their offensive coordinator now, like everybody else. But you know,
that's what happens. You can't say anything bad about their defense, even though they got 45 hung on them.
well, it was two pick sixes,
and that'll like kind of deflate you.
But Stroud was just, off the wrong foot, out of the pocket, throwing dimes at 40, 50 yards. I mean, it was really kind of amazing.
It's crazy because they're so young.
I know.
This is like them and the Green Bay Packers. It's like two teams that are super young that shouldn't be here.
They're all those receivers I've never really heard of.
No.
I mean, there must have been 1 or 2 years in the league. You know what I mean?
Also, it's funny because like this is the time when you like if you have this kind of squad, if you have like a bunch of young guys playing really well together, this is the time you have a good chance of doing something because there's no big contract that's kind of weighing everything down.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see where they go. I mean,
just in the view of everything else, the Texans have been sort of Patriots South for like 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's been, it hasn't been good. Billy O'Brien was the
Yeah,
coach.
yeah.
And then they get DeMeco Ryans, and
he's got everybody.
know
He's
what
got
I mean?
everybody pumped.
Takes off.
They're not supposed to be. They're not supposed to be here.
And they're in the worst division in football, so they got in. Well, you know what I mean? It's kind of funny.
But I'm very impressed. I'm excited to see their game.
Yep.
We can move along pretty quick.
Okay, so you want to go to the Green Bay Packers and the Dallas Cowboys?
That was about as disastrous as it gets. And it honestly, it feels good because all year, the Dallas Cowboys, you hear things about the Dallas Cowboys, and then like Michael Parsons had a podcast that he was, every week this guy is talking all this, he's like, I'm not really afraid of these teams, this team or that team. And, it's just, we're the team to beat. We're the team to beat. And then when he said, like the podcast before the playoff game, he was saying, the regular season was cute, and now it's time for the real game.
Wow.
And then you say all that, and then you just lay a big fat egg against a super young team in Green Bay, who also, you have to think about Green Bay. It's like Green Bay just gets the best luck. They go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, and now they have Jordan Love, who's playing really, really well.
Well, and he was 3 years in the league. That's what people are starting to say now. If you draft a quarterback, you need to sit him for a couple of years.
There's certain people.
Who can sit him for a couple of years? You'll go through 3 coaches waiting for him to be the 3 years. You know what I mean?
You have to have patience.
But in the NFL, there is no patience. It just
no.
And what's his name? The halfback. What's his name? Okay, get your names out here. The young kid that was hurt all season. He's really, really good. He scored 3 touchdowns.
Was it Jones? Yeah.
Yeah, Jones. And
Aaron Jones.
But the last couple of weeks, I watched Dallas play a couple of times, and they were doing the same thing. All of a sudden, Dak Prescott couldn't hit anybody, and they were kind of lucky to get out of there. They laid a couple of eggs.
I would say, like after seeing Dak Prescott all these years, I think it's a mental thing with him, because once when there's no pressure and you're playing a bunch of flunky teams, you look really dominant.
Yeah.
But the second that you're in these tight spots and you need a big time win, he kind of like locks up.
Kind of feels that way.
Yeah.
Tony Romo-ish,
Yeah.
right?
No, it's the same vibe. It's like, oh, it's easy. You look great in certain situations, but then there's other moments where it's like, is this
Well,
person...
you've got Jerry on high there.
And that's another problem too. That's another problem. Every week, you know, I think within the first 5 weeks, they were talking about the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are you talking about the Super Bowl? You got to be talking about one game at a time.
Yeah.
And considering your track record, there's no reason to talk about the Super Bowl.
So how about we go on to the Frozen Bowl there in Kansas City against
Kansas City versus Miami.
Miami looked just...
Well, you know, the thing that I thought about that game was the difference in like the ball flight for Patrick Mahomes and Tua. Like Mahomes is dishing this thing out in the freezing temperatures, and then Tua, it looked like a dead duck flying through the air. It would just look like it was a struggle to get there. They got that one play.
Yep, but it looked like a game you shouldn't be throwing out to the side.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It looked like you had to hit quick hits over the middle and let people, you know what I mean?
And run. I mean, that's what you always got to do if you got Tyreek.
Yeah, and you know, Mahomes, he just plays with defenses so well that he's able to manipulate them and make them not do what they want to do. And then footing, they just...
Yeah, well, it's funny because I've heard like through different sports shows and whatnot, and they talk about Miami, and Miami is like they're break dancers, and they're not necessarily ready to grind.
Yeah.
You know, and so, and I feel bad for Tyreek because like let's be honest, Tyreek Hill, if he was still on Kansas City, they would be winning so many games, and especially considering how good their defense is.
Yeah.
Which is like the first time in the history of.
But this might be it because what's his name is going this year. He keeps saying he's leaving.
I know, but they're built. Their defense has got so many young guys.
They do.
So it's like if they need to spend money on getting another person to fill like Chris Jones's shoes, they could because they got to go younger.
Yeah.
And then Spagnuolo is so good at like.
He really is.
He's just brilliant. But I was surprised with that one reception from Tyreek, that big reception.
Yep.
I'm surprised that was the only time. But it's just so hard. It's hard to move the ball. It's hard to score.
They just looked frozen and they didn't know what to do.
They look like they're from Miami.
They look like they're from Miami. And there it is. You have to get home games in the playoffs.
Yes.
It doesn't matter who you are. If you're Buffalo, that's your advantage. If you're Miami, that's your advantage. You know, except for Dallas gets a home game.
Well, Dallas is the exception because they just continue to baffle and fail.
Really something.
The only thing I'll say to finish with this was that as good as the Chiefs' defense looked and as good as the Chiefs' offense looked in times, their red zone is like bad. And it's really weird because they used to be so dominant in the red zone, and now they get down there and they don't do anything. So.
Yeah, well, that Pacheco guy is hurt, right? Playing hurt.
Yeah, but he looks like he's so angry. And that trying to tackle him, I would never want to tackle that guy because he just runs hard and it looks like he has sharp elbows.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, well, we got one more game to talk about. What game do we miss?
We have the Los Angeles Rams versus Detroit.
Oh yeah, which was
Pittsburgh,
a great
Buffalo.
game.
I
really liked that game.
I was really impressed with. I was impressed with the way the Rams hung in there.
Yeah.
And then their Nakua, their rookie wide receiver, who is
great,
unbelievable.
And what's his name? The quarterback there that used to be on the Lions.
Stafford.
He was I mean, I saw a throw I've never seen before. It was a look away. It was a guy coming right at his face. He was looking over here and he threw it like this.
Yeah, he does
right
the side
by
arm.
the guy, and it was 20 yards on a line in stride. It was.
He is the one where people were saying, you know, when Mahomes came into the league, they're like, wow, Mahomes does all these like crazy different arm angles. And then other people were like, well, have you ever watched Matthew Stafford throw football? Because the guy throws a really good ball.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like the thing about Detroit is that their team is so much different because of their head coach.
Yeah.
And he kind of you could see that he kind of pulls them along.
Well, yeah, because they, in the past you would say, wait, no, it's 4th down. Don't do that. Don't do this. And he's like, no, we're breaking the mold here.
Absolutely.
We're going for it, especially after that whole thing with Dallas.
Yeah, when they
at
got
the end of the
robbed.
game when they got robbed.
Yeah.
That even was helpful to them in a way, like, you know what? We're going for it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That was the best game of the weekend to watch.
It was because everything else
doubt.
was very disappointing. I was hoping to see tighter games.
Yeah.
And like we can move on to the Buffalo Pittsburgh game.
Yeah.
Like it was just a disaster. It was a disaster from jump, and you knew that they were.
And something happened twice in that game that I think is a thing going forward. Josh Allen faked sliding. He faked the slide.
That's how he got that touchdown.
And then, all of a sudden, when he faked the slide the next time, the guy drilled him, and he got a penalty.
Yeah.
It's like he's flopping now. You know what I mean? It's like a basketball play.
And there's nothing you can do. It's indefensible. You can't, because you can't react.
No.
Like you're supposed to tackle this guy, but I'm not allowed to tackle him in certain instances.
And the guy's midair, and then not only that, when he slides, he goes right in. That's why he hits him in the head, because he's sliding. You can't go up, you can't go down.
Yeah.
It's getting to be not right.
It's tough. And Josh Allen's the only quarterback who, when I see him run, I think he's probably the only dude who I'd be like comfortable with running, because he's such a big guy.
Yeah.
He seems like he's hard to take down. He's like a faster Ben Roethlisberger.
I agree, but it's only a matter of time where somebody hits him.
It's going to get hit
in the knee.
In the leg,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
It could happen this game. It could happen the first game of next year, and then he's out for the season.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree. It's like when you look at Jalen Hurts, you can see all season he was dealing with injuries because he was used so much.
Yeah.
But then again, Josh Allen is just a bigger guy. I feel like their defense and their running game has stepped up.
Yeah, Cook
Yeah.
came out of nowhere to me. I mean, I'm sure he didn't come out of nowhere, but he's been really good. Their defense, I think, is pretty hurt though. They had in that game, they had 3 out of their 4 defensive backs were backups, and they're out. You know what I mean? I think they're going to be out. So I don't know. It depends on whether it snows. It's going to be I'm not sure about that game, but
It's going to be tough.
I would pick, if it was me, I'd pick Kansas City.
Okay.
So that's me.
Well, let's get to the Philly game versus Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
So I will say, all season, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
People doubting Baker Mayfield, myself included.
Yeah.
Because you see the cocky brash, but it's also the kind of personality that you could easily see a team rally behind.
Yeah.
They enjoy that kind of fight, that kind of drive.
Yeah.
And I was surprised at 32-9 against a Nick Sirianni team that had been collapsing.
Well, but their offense is odd how they run, the push.
Yeah.
There's every once in a while they throw a 40-yard pass to Brown or the other guy there, but their defense, their defensive front 7 was unbelievable in the beginning of the season, and then all of a sudden they were gone. It was
really weird.
I don't.
I mean, you can tell I think that style of play can weigh on you.
I guess
a little bit, and then I feel like Jalen Hurts was injured the whole season. Like he was dealing with all this stuff. But then I never felt bad I felt bad for Jason Kelsey. I was like, I really like him.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind seeing him win one more round, getting around to the next one. But I think the thing that makes the Eagles unlikable for people on the outside is Nick Sirianni. Because he always had this kind of air of like, he's just juvenile.
Yeah.
He's just kind of a juvenile guy.
But I haven't really heard him in like talking and making me feel that way. You're saying his presence on the sideline.
Presence on the sideline, his tunnel antics,
Yeah.
and things like that. And it was just kind of like, we're the best, and now you flopped
right
on your face.
I know.
And you've been booted from the playoffs.
I know. And now, and if Kelsey retires, their team is going to change. And now Brown wants out.
Yeah, who knows where he's going to go.
I don't have any idea. It's It's very strange. The NFC East really just crashed and burned.
Yeah, I mean, they lost. They lost to the 49ers, the Cowboys, to the Seahawks. They beat the Giants, barely.
Yeah.
And then they lost to the Cardinals, and then they got their butts whooped by the Giants
They
in the
lost
final
to the
game.
Cardinals.
And that's why people are like, he needs to be fired, referring to
I
Nick
know.
Sirianni. But, I think in this kind of world, you got to give him, if you went to the Super Bowl one year and then next year you kind of have a little bit of a hiccup, if that's what you want to call it, you can't just fire the guy. I think starting next season, he'll be on the hot seat.
Yeah. Who knows how this is all working now? Every team. I mean, half the teams in the league are looking for coaches, or they have first-year coaches.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
It's the NFL, unlike any other sport. It's honestly the thing, like we were saying before, like you need your quarterback alone. If you have like a rookie quarterback with like C.J. Stroud excluded.
Yep.
But it's like they need to enter the graduate program of football knowledge.
Yeah.
And you need to learn all the defenses, and you need to learn the language of your team and the playbook of that particular coach. I think it's hard for any team to have success if you're going to fire a coach after 2 or 3 seasons.
Or even an off. So every offensive coordinator comes with his own book now. This is how I do it.
Yeah.
And those guys are switching all over the place too.
I know.
I mean,
yeah.
it doesn't. And that's Brady came out and said that on one of his podcasts that he's involved with. He said, "There's no consistency in any of these teams anymore. The reason that we were able to put in all these things is because we all did it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We all knew it. We'd all seen it. We'd all felt comfortable with it. They don't know anything. And then there's a quarterback with a liability, and everybody knows what the like Jalen Hurts. He's a great quarterback, but he really is a running quarterback
Yes.
first. He wants to get on the outside. Well, if you have a defense to stop that, then what?
Exactly, yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's it makes teams one-dimensional, it seems like,
I-
unless you have Mahomes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, and Mahomes is a product of Andy Reid.
Yeah.
And so they're gonna have a familiarity, whatever, with
Yep.
that.
Yep.
And like if you're constantly getting rid of people, and like there's no other sport where the position of quarterback is unlike any, because it is so hard.
It is.
You have to make these split-second decisions. Literally, the ball has to be out of your hands in like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with that, and then a new offensive coordinator comes in, redoes everything that you've learned, so you have to unlearn stuff, and then you're putting in a new playbook. That's why, like a team like Green Bay, like they've had their coach for a while, and they're going to keep him there for a while.
Yep.
And he's had that quarterback for a while in the quarterback room,
Yep.
so that's why you're going to start to see success. Somebody like when you look at Dallas, like they'll have somebody there for like 3 years and then they'll fire him.
Yeah.
And it's a surprise that Mark
funny
McCarthy's still
thing
there.
about that, and I never really realized that, but Jerry Jones, since Jimmy Johnson left, he's had like second-tier coaches.
Yeah.
It's Bum Phillips, it's Jason Garrett.
Mm-hmm.
They're not here.
No.
They're guys. They're kind of lowball because Jerry Jones wants to run the team
That's why I couldn't
through that
see-
guy. Like Mike McCarthy got booted from Green Bay, and they said, "Well, you can come in here,
But
we're telling
Yeah,
you what
you have
to
all
do."
these guardrails
Yeah,
that you have to kind of-
you know what I mean? And I don't know. I guess that doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I really don't know what works anymore. You know what I mean? It's
I think consistency is the key. You need to have a system in there, and you honestly need to get lucky. Because
Yeah.
you need to draft a quarterback.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it's impossible to kind of evaluate these quarterbacks and tell whether or not they're going to have success in the NFL.
Yeah.
Because all the intangibles that you see on paper, they don't translate.
yeah.
And so it's like, like Brock Purdy. Like nobody saw Brock Purdy coming in and dominating.
And Brock Purdy is Bailey Zappi. They're the exact same guy.
Yeah.
In
But
fact,
it's the system that they're in.
It's the system that they're in. You know what I mean? And Shanahan's system. Now everybody says, "Well, we have to get a guy from the Shanahan tree."
Yeah.
That's all they're talking about. And well, yeah, but you have to have a halfback and Debo Samuel and Kelly.
Oh yeah, and they've got so many
They
guys.
got so many weapons. I mean,
Their offense and defense, and it's like honestly the only reason they probably can afford all that is because Brock Purdy is making like $400,000.
There you go. You know what I mean?
So that'll change the dynamics once you got to pay that.
That's
guy.
the other thing about all of that is that if you have Aaron Rodgers making $50 million, but he's on the sideline all season, then you're handcuffed.
And that's why it goes to show you that coaching is so important in the NFL because it's not even just your head coach. Obviously, that person matters, but it's all these other coaches kind of building up these players, these young players.
Just to get on the Patriots for a second, Bill Belichick screwed up. What's his name there for the quarterback from Alabama? There. I'm sorry, that year with no offensive coach because he doesn't want to name a coach, and then he brings in Bill O'Brien, and before they can do anything. They don't have an offensive line.
Yeah.
And the guy's running for his life on the second play of the game.
No, that's the thing. Certain people in certain areas would be better. You know, you'd be better playing for certain coaches. If you're a quarterback, you need to have an offensive-minded coach. But, it's kind of
the NFL's going to go to the portal system like college football.
Oh, really?
No, can you imagine that?
You could just bounce.
Yeah.
All right, well, now we've talked all about that. We can talk about the divisional round.
Okay.
And we'll start with Houston and Baltimore.
Houston and Baltimore. Well, Baltimore, I hate to say it because I do not like them. I never liked John Harbaugh. But they look pretty impressive. Lamar Jackson is unbelievable. They got Beckham. They got guys. Andrews, their big tight end, is coming back. He's been out for 5 weeks. Their defense
is top notch.
Their special teams is always top. They got their kicker. I mean, I even think that they're probably set up to be number one, even versus San Francisco in my mind.
Well, they've come in. The Ravens have come in probably on one of the hottest teams. They lost their last game to the Steelers, but nobody played.
Yeah.
And then before that, they beat the Dolphins, they beat the 49ers, they beat the Jaguars. They beat the 49ers down. They beat them 33-19.
Yeah.
And
was that in Baltimore or was that in?
That was at San Francisco.
Wow.
So they went there and destroyed them.
Yeah.
So this is what I'll say though. This is what I'll say about this matchup. The Texans are playing with house money.
Yep.
It does not. They can play as loose and as free. Nobody expects them to win. They're not even supposed to be here.
Yep.
And Lamar Jackson has not necessarily performed that well in the playoffs.
In big games.
Yeah. And so that is the only reason why right now it's like when you look at ESPN, it's like 81.7% chance that Baltimore wins. I think it's going to be a lot lower than that. I think it'll be a closer game. Houston's tough to guard. I know the Ravens are very good, but there's another, they don't always come up. They're not always that successsul when it comes to.
I agree. I mean, that's what you can bank on. That's sort of the Dallas factor.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But other than that,
they should
paper,
win.
They should win.
And if I had to pick, I would pick Baltimore.
And it's probably got about a 10-point spread or something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. So
I
guess we both agree on that one.
Yeah.
What's next?
Green Bay versus San Francisco.
Well, this is going to be another one. Okay, so it's almost the same scenario.
Yeah.
Green Bay's house money.
Not supposed to be there.
Not supposed to be there.
Young quarterback.
But the thing about these two teams is, over the years, they always play in a lot of big games, right? For the last 15, 20 years, there's been a lot of big games. You never know. I mean, Jordan Love, you just don't know. And sometimes, all of a sudden, San Francisco doesn't look as impressive.
They'll throw out a duck. They'll throw out just like one really, really bad game. Like they've had some losses this year that were kind of questionable. They lost to a Bengals team that I don't even think had Joe Burrow at the time.
I don't think it did either.
They lost to the Vikings. They lost to the Browns, and obviously they lost to the Ravens. But they're like this is a team. San Francisco. This is a team that I would think that they would be. Like, based on the numbers, it's like 78.6% chance that they win. That would lead me to believe that they're going to run away with it, but I think it'll be a tight game.
Yeah. I don't know about
good.
Yeah, I don't know about Green Bay's defensive front. If they can stop McCaffrey and put pressure on Purdy,
That's
Those
the key.
two things. Maybe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A pick six, or this, or
The
that.
key is
you know.
not getting, like, the San Francisco's, like, biggest, like, skill is, like, when they get ahead, they are impossible to
Yeah.
catch up to. But if you stay even with them or you get them down, Brock Purdy will start to press, and that's when he usually makes a mistake.
Well, and the thing is you just every guy, you don't know where the ball's going to go.
They have
it's
so many
Samuel
people.
out here. It's what's his name, the tight end over here. It's they just have so many weapons.
Yeah, they have a ton of weapons. So
So once again, San
San
Francisco,
Francisco
I would
is what I
say.
would-
I hope it's going to be a good game, and
I hope it's going to be a good. I just don't want it. I don't want what happened last weekend, which is just
yeah.
like at halftime.
Close.
I'm like, do I need to watch this?
Yeah.
Like then like I can't
I know.
can't convince my family. that I
I
need to
came
keep
in
watching
late and it
this
was
game.
27-0 on the Dallas game.
Yeah.
I was like,
It's-
what?
It's not even. It's not
What?
even fun.
It was-
But I mean, the fact that they beat Dallas like that, it leads me to believe that they have a very good chance of winning.
I
I would
agree.
say they have a good chance. So we'll go Tampa Bay versus
The Lions.
The Lions.
Once,
This game.
once again, it's going to be. That's probably the best game. It might be the best game of the weekend.
This is going to be. I would say that Tampa Bay. You know, they looked great against the Eagles, but the Eagles have looked like junk, and the Lions. The only reason why I would pick against the Lions is because they're the Lions. You know, there's nothing that they've done on the field that would say to me,
Yeah.
don't trust these guys. It's just they have a pedigree of losing.
Yep.
And so I'm like,
That's true.
And so I don't necessarily, like, I don't know who I'd even want to win this game.
No, I like both. I mean, I always thought that Jared Goff got it all thrown on him when they lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and then they dumped him.
Yeah.
And so I felt bad for him, and he's made amends a little bit. And I've always liked what's his name, the quarterback for Tampa Bay.
Baker Mayfield.
He's just a cocky guy, and he wings it around, and he plays it. He's out on his sleeve, and
He's a locker room player. The
Yeah.
guys in the locker room love him.
and they're both good stories.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I would, if I had to pick, because it's in Detroit and everybody in the whole world there is so excited about it. I probably pick Detroit.
I'm gonna pick Detroit just because Tampa Bay, they're good, but it's a 9-8 team. You know, they've had their struggles, and
Yeah.
sometimes when that's your record, that's who you are.
Yeah. And
honestly, like the Detroit should have 13 wins because that one of them got robbed,
taken away.
and so, and their coach is like all or nothing type guy. People seem to love him, so I will go with my gut and say the Detroit Lions.
It's funny because what's his name? The coach of Tampa Bay, the guy that was the defensive coordinator for the Jets. Remember? Was he the coach of the Jets?
Oh yeah. I know who you're talking about.
He's the quietest, mildest guy, and then you have what's his name on Detroit. You know what I mean? The complete opposites. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, Todd Bowles.
Todd Bowles.
Very quiet.
I like
defensive.
Todd Bowles. I like Todd Bowles.
I do too. All right, so the last game is the
Case.
biggest game.
Yeah.
It's by far the biggest game. It is Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills. I'm looking on the matchup predictor on ESPN, and it's a 56.6% chance that Buffalo will win.
Well, it's home.
Based on what I've seen with the way Buffalo plays, and then based on what I've seen with Kansas City, I think this is going to be a very tight game. And the only reason I feel like Buffalo will win is because Buffalo, they don't have like many drop passes. Kansas City has been dropping passes, and then their red zone offense is not that great. Buffalo can be a quick scoring team. Kansas City hasn't been doing that all season. But Kansas City's defense is like ridiculous.
But I'm sorry, Josh Allen can throw 3 picks in the first half.
He can, but he hasn't been doing it. He was almost nearly perfect the last game.
Yeah, it was the first time. I mean, the Patriots game, the game he lost to the Patriots, he was horrific. You know, it's kind of random. I think this is the game for Buffalo. I think if they don't win this game, I wouldn't doubt that they crash and burn going forward. They've been here 2 or 3 years now.
This is their biggest game of. This is the biggest game of these guys' career.
I really think that.
By far, yeah.
They have to get by, and when you think about it, they have to beat KC.
Mm-hmm.
Then if they win it, then they would have to beat Baltimore.
Yeah.
Then they would have to beat San Francisco, and that's a tall order.
That is a big time order.
They
would be one of the greatest runs.
For them,
Yeah.
and not only that, their defense is hurt. Milano's out.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of guys. I think that guy Ed Oliver is playing hurt now.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I'm picking it, I'm picking
KC.
Mahomes.
I would say Mahomes. The reason why it's easy to go with Mahomes, it's because he's done it.
Yeah.
He's won, but now people are like, he's never played a road playoff game.
Yeah.
He's never done a road.
I know.
But his road record in the regular season is better than his home record in the regular season. So
I just watched the highlights of the old Patriots KC game. Remember when?
Oh, yeah.
Patriots won in overtime.
Yeah, that was a rough.
But it's that kind of game, and I think this could be that kind of game where. How many possessions do you have in the fourth quarter?
Yeah.
And what do you do with them?
No,
do you get field goals or do you get touchdowns?
And that's
you know
the thing.
what
I would say so far in the season, KC gets more field goals than they get touchdowns.
Yeah.
So their defense is going to have to play really big, and they're going to have to get 1 or 2 turnovers.
Well, and Buffalo is another team that says 4th and 2. We got the big guy. We're going for it. And sometimes
it
works,
doesn't work. Yeah.
And sometimes that doesn't work. You know.
Yeah.
What I mean?
And this is one of those games where, like Kansas City, they always get like one of these random, like turnovers that doesn't make any sense, like in the Super Bowl.
And that's their defensive coordinator. He always comes up with the blitz package that's like.
Who's coming?
You don't know. Where did he come from? You know what I mean? He really helps that team a lot. You know.
No, and that's another thing. It's like we're talking about people who. I don't think he ever wants to be like a head coach.
No.
Just do this one job. And so if you have that's why Kansas City is such
Wasn't he a head coach? Was he a head
think
coach
so.
of the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, a long time ago, right?
Before he went back into defensive
coordinator. And it's
coordinator.
like sometimes you just got to know your place. Like just do that.
Yeah.
You make great money and just do that. Why not?
Yeah, well, they're all trying to reach. Well, but when you get the $30 million.
Yeah, I mean, so you take that for like a year or two, and then
then you go back and be a defensive coordinator.
Well, that's all the games, and that's all the time we have for today.
Okay.
So thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you. We'll come back next week.
Sure.
We'll come back next week, and we'll go over the games
for the championship.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.